how would you, I feel like philosophy, we talked about this when I originally proofed early, I guess, drafts of The Obstacle is the Way, your latest book, that, selling philosophy is problematic, right?
Sure.
Because I think the term for most people it conjures an image of the schmuck in Good Will Hunting in the bar,
Sure.
who's paraphrasing literature without giving any credit, or some like tortured graduate student at NYU who loves to sort of quibble over semantics of words that really, at the end of the day, the argumentation is just a lot of fancy tail chasing. And that's, I think, a very mainstream interpretation of this word philosophy. How do you view philosophy? How do you present it to people so that it's palatable or attractive?
Yeah. So when I sat down to write the book, I totally empathize with that. No one wakes up and says like, hey, like I need philosophy. They say, I have this problem and I need a solution to this problem. Well, it turns out that historically that's what philosophy actually was for, specifically Stoicism. Like there's a great quote from Henry David Thoreau where he says like, to be a philosopher is not about like having subtle thoughts or founding a school. It's about solving the problems of life, not theoretically, but practically. And I think the Stoics understood that much earlier, like 2,000 years ago. Cato, who you've written about, was considered to be a philosopher, but not because he wrote anything down, but because of how he lived his life. Socrates didn't write anything down. Epictetus, we only have his lessons because a student of his wrote them down as notes. And Marcus Aurelius is like, he wanted to be a philosopher, but he was in line for the throne. And so he had to mix his philosophy with being the most powerful man in the world. And so what I think is really interesting about Stoicism, and I talk about this in the book, is when you look at it and you see that it has this, it tends to have a resurgence when times are really, really bad. So like, Stoicism was very popular during the American Revolution. Like George Washington read the Stoics as a teenager. At Valley Forge, he actually put on a play about Cato, which is one of the most popular plays in the world at that time. Thomas Jefferson died with a copy of Seneca on his nightstand. And then during the Civil War and in the Victorian era, you saw another resurgence of Stoicism. Stoicism was big during the American Revolution, the Industrial Revolution, the Enlightenment, the Renaissance. And then, it was also like Marcus Aurelius was living in the decline and the fall of the Roman Empire. Like it doesn't get much worse than that. And so it's basically at its core, it's this philosophy that says like, you don't control the world around you. You only control your response to that world. And so that's a very practical and beneficial philosophy when a lot of things are happening around you that you wish weren't happening.